PGA Nation, we are back and we are coming off an exciting, a really thrilling finish to a U.S. Open. JJ Spawn. Now, my instinct wants to say, who was going to predict JJ Spawn winning the U.S. Open? But if you watch our show, he was brought up on the show and mentioned, I believe Nick brought it up, and Nick was like, are we playing JJ Spawn this week? But it was interesting because he was 5 over in the first, 7 holes? He was basically out of contention. Then the rain break happened. And, I don't want to take anything away from him. He won the tournament, and he deserves to be the winner. But it almost felt like everyone else blew the tournament. Like everyone was just bogeying and double bogeying, and all he had to do was just not fall apart. But, he went out and, of course, he made a sick putt to win. But it was a really fun U.S. Open, a fun week to finish, and also a huge congratulations is in order for Team Audience for not only winning the King of the Draft again, but Spencer, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe this is the first ever three-peat on King of the Draft.
It's the first ever, and I want to say it might be the first time the audience has ever three-peat. So you guys have picked the right time to do it. It was a dismantling lineup that was put together. Like, even when Sam Burns was winning the tournament, and that's who Nick had, the audience was still steamrolling the competition at that moment. So great build from top to bottom. It would have been, I always compare it to lineups of into those $5, 50,000 person contests. And that lineup, if Bryson would have been able to make the weekend, that lineup would have competed to really compete for a lot more money. So great job from the audience. It's been 3 weeks of just really destroying us. And we brought in Byron this week to try to at least take away from that ever so slightly. So it should be a good quality show.
Well, I will say the audience, I believe, and I believe this firmly, we have the best audience that there is in all of DFS and podcasting. And so we super appreciate you guys. You guys are on an absolute heater right now, tearing us apart. And as Spence said, we got to, Byron is definitely one of our best guests that we ever have on the show. He's the most consistent. We are super appreciative of having Byron on this show. But he's also an audience member. He comes on, he watches the show, he participates with you guys. We got to do something. We got to handicap you guys. We can't keep losing the Team Audience. So we took Byron out of the audience, brought him on the show, let him draft his own team. Oh, Byron, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Joel. Happy to be here and representing the audience's second team. We're going to really try and keep that 4-peat going. I'm classifying myself as audience. If I am making questionable picks to allow a certain player to fall to where the audience is, it is not by coincidence this evening. We are going for the 4-peat. I'm also going to win the GPP with a lineup I drafted.
It is time. We need another win from a GPP, from a lineup that is drafted on this show. It's going to happen. It's going to happen this year. It's going to be soon. Maybe even this week. But we have a fun tournament this week. A no-cut event. We're heading to Connecticut for the Travelers. I think from a DFS perspective, from a show perspective, what you're looking for out there on the course this week, I think it's helpful. I think there's an edge to be had if you're paying attention and doing your research. I think you can win some money this week. Audience, because you guys won, you guys picked the order. So we're going to be drafting tonight. Audience, the first person to drop an order in the chat, that is the order we're going to go with for the draft tonight. So anyone, feel free to drop whatever order you want, whatever we get, we will run with. My one preference is that Team Audience, that you guys draft either first or last. It's easier to manage a draft with you guys on the corner, getting 2 in a row. So that's my preference. Whoever drops it, put the audience first or last for me, please. Before we dive into it, Spence, I want to go back over to you. What are you looking for on the course this week over in Connecticut?
Yeah, so we have TPC River Highlands. It was initially built in 1928 by Robert Ross. We've seen it redesigned twice in the 1980s by Pete Dye and Bobby Weed. Anytime you hear those Pete Dye and TPC narratives, they're always interesting to handicap because of the rollover production that they present from a statistical perspective. That's something we see with this track ranking inside the top 10 in terms of predictability when you run it against all other courses on tour that are going to be used here in 2025. On the surface, it's a 6,852-yard measurement. You have smaller than average greens. A lot of that tells the story of this short game prowess, mid-iron play that comes to the forefront of this discussion. While a lot of that, and I will discuss some of those iron proximities in a second, we do see that take center stage, but one of the biggest differences that I saw inside of my model is when we looked at the dispersion of scoring and how it ramped up on strokes gained off the tee. 15.3% average production on any generic course on tour off the tee. It's 19.1% here. So I think golfers that have length and accuracy are going to be able to find an advantage on these extremely short totals into these greens. And then, I talked about this proximity bucket. Anywhere between 100 to 175 is really where you want to be looking. And if you want to chunk it down even further, there's over a 7% increase that's seen from 125 to 175 yards. So essentially the way I built my model, I would love to give Byron a second to talk about his model once I get done with this, but I look for those proximity buckets. I look for players that could spike with their putter. I look for that uptick that you could find off the tee, whether that be from a Pete Dye track, a TPC property, some of these shorter venues. All of that got rolled into my model, and that is kind of the blueprint of how I tried to find success this week.
Yeah, spot on, Spencer. The proximity stuff on approach, dialed that in. Those are like pretty much 100 to 150s where I'm really looking. And then I also just have strokes gained off the tee on shorter courses than 7,200 yards. I think that's going to, you typically see long iron correlation with those guys that drive it well on these kind of courses because you're basically hitting long irons or 3-woods, off of those tee boxes here. If you, playing it safe or if you're going big, you drive it well too. So easy scoring as well. Got to have the easy scoring bug. There's some guys like Justin Thomas, for instance, someone that can just absolutely spike on the easy scoring side of things, but you've seen him in majors completely like fall apart, like his game is just not built for like that kind of stuff. And we've got 3 courses, Spencer: Memorial, US Open, Quail, the RBC Canadian one, TPC Toronto. 4 really difficult venues that lead into an easy one, So like if you can find that middle road of the easy guys that might have been playing badly, you can get some discounts this week.
There you have it, Matt. There's your advice. Make sure you listen back. These are 2 of the sharpest minds in all of DFS. If you can understand what they're looking for in their golfers this week, that's how you find an edge and can win some of these DFS tournaments. Now, we have a draft tonight. We'll be drafting 4 teams. If you are new to the show, you can participate. You can draft along with Team Audience. Team Audience, as I mentioned earlier, is on an absolute heater, has won 3 in a row, or going for a 4-peat. Again, Spencer, I'll confirm with you. I'm not sure if there's ever been 4 wins in a row on this show from any of us. Spencer, you may have once. I know you had a really long streak last year, I think it was. But maybe, and it's a maybe. I know you definitely had 3. Did you get to 4 or 5 in that streak?
I got to 5, and I touted that 6th episode as the double 3-peat, and I think I came in last place. So the audience, if they get there, you're going to have to do better than I did. But look, I mean, we put together great guests on the show like Byron, Nick. Like, we have on all the brightest minds in the space, and I think you and I, Joel, do a great job on this show. So 3 wins in a row, that is nothing to sleep on. And like I said at the very beginning, that lineup was a legitimate lineup that was threatening for quite a bit of time. Yeah,
audience, bring your A game. I would love to see 4 in a row. I can't say I'm rooting for you because I want to win too, but I kind of like the audience success. So I'm feeling it this week. Like I said, if you are new to the show, draft along with Team Audience. I'll bring the draft board up as a quick reminder. The way it works tonight, thanks to who dropped the order? Was it Jody that dropped the order or Andrew? Andrew, we appreciate you. Thanks to Andrew. The order tonight, Byron, lucky for you, we'll be going first. Spencer second, me third, audience fourth. It's a snake draft like your typical fantasy football draft. So audience, you'll get 2 there in the 4th spot, and then we will go backwards. I'll get the first pick in the 2nd round, so on and so forth. The one caveat is you do need to actually afford your lineup. So you can't just take all the best golfers. You need to make sure you can actually play your lineup in a DraftKings tournament. Now, if you're on YouTube, the way the draft works for the audience is when it's an audience pick, anyone can make a nomination. So everyone, if you want somebody on the team, just put it in the chat, drop the name you want the audience to draft. As soon as a golfer is mentioned twice, so if someone's name is mentioned twice by an audience member in the chat, that is your pick, and that's when it is finalized until you get a full roster. So, without further ado, with the first pick, Byron, you were on the clock.
This is a tough one because I don't get the second guy I want. He's not coming back, So, like, I've got to pick between my 2 favorites here. And I'm going to go with Justin Thomas
Ooh.
as my number one pick. Obviously, was contemplating Scotty. I just think I'm going to take a gamble on getting $4,000 extra for the rest of my 5 guys now. Since it's a draft as well, that kind of frees me up a little better. Scotty can absolutely tie your hands at 13-3 as always. And I just have a good feeling about JT. I think, it's a perfect course for him. I mentioned him, in the kind of course preview. So I'm not going to say all that about him and then not take him. So I think he's a great value at Justin Thomas. Yeah, number one.
And JT, I mean, the last 2 times he's teed off here, he's gotten you 2 top 10, so he obviously likes this course. And if you think about, we made a big talk last week about Scotty's price and how, we thought the pricing was soft, and even at his high price tag, you could still build a pretty competitive lineup. That was at a major. That was a more stacked field. This is still a pretty loaded field, but it's not quite as soft a pricing. Now, this is not me saying don't play Scotty. Just saying it's not as easy to build a super competitive lineup this week because of the rest of the pricing outside of him. So if you play Scotty, you're going to have to take a little bit more of a shot on somebody down low than last week, where there was more guys in the 7K range that you probably felt comfortable with than you're going to see this week. So I totally get it. But, being honest with you, Scotty lasted me at 3, I'm going to take him. So it's not me saying you don't take him. I get where you're coming from with going with JT on the first pick. Spence, how about you? Are you interested in Justin Thomas this week? And then you're up with the second pick.
I think for everybody out there listening, Byron and I feel like we have been the 2 people that have been anti-Justin Thomas in all these majors. You put him on difficult scoring courses, the driver really goes south. We faded him at the PGA Championship. We faded him last week at the US Open. I know you and I specifically in this space have been just against Thomas in a lot of these spots. And I think it's a noteworthy thing for everybody out there that courses matter. And that's why we build numbers. And I like Justin Thomas also. I think there's a ton of reasons to play him. The one negative reason to play him is it becomes a little bit more challenging to fit him in a lineup next to Scotty Scheffler. I would make the counter argument to what you said, Joel. I would say that it is more optimal to play Scotty this week than it was last week. Specifically for this show, it's probably more challenging because once a name gets taken away and we only have 72 options at this, it's going to make this a lot more difficult once Scotty's taken. But if you give me the entire range of people and you're not stealing them away from me when one of the picks gets made, I think Scotty is probably the optimal route to go. Does not mean that you can't go Scotty and Justin Thomas. There's a lot of ways to put it down beneath, but it just more so ties your hand. And I think Byron's point of you take Thomas, it opens up the landscape of what you can do, makes a lot of sense for a show like this. It's kind of the safer route to go while you can still go outside of the box with it. All of that being said, I'm going to take Scotty Scheffler here. I just think he's the best player. I mean, we could write and read off a million different stats of why that's the case. We do that every single week. I just think that if you look at him and you compare him to a lot of these 10,000 plus golfers, and I would love to hear your guys' thoughts on this as just a 2-second thing. I do think there is a massive skill set discrepancy to where if you're not going to play Scotty, I'd almost rather dip down to the Justin Thomases of the world and build a lineup like that. I just think that to go from Rory to Scotty is easy enough to where I'm going to do that 100 times out of 100 times.
I agree. I think there's something about it's more the current form of the other top tier golfers right now that makes you kind of feel like if you're comparing this price tag to Scotty right now, I'd rather either just take Scotty or go more balanced and go a little lower and not even bother with that top 10K, upper 9K range. But I think, that will change. I think by the end of the year, we won't be saying that anymore. Those guys will get back into form and be playing better. But right now, the way we've seen these guys playing, I just think it's just not a time to play them. So I agree with that sentiment. What about you? What about you on that, Byron?
It was, for me, there's 3 names I'm willing to pick stopping at Justin Thomas from Scotty Scheffler. There's one other name between those 2 dudes that I'm willing to play. And I'm totally down on everybody south of JT. So that's kind of my game plan. I'm giving you kind of that situation, but also that's why I didn't want to lead JT all the way to the end and maybe not come back because I don't care about anybody else south of Scotty, So it's going to be interesting to see how we build because there's a lot of warts on a lot of these guys that are kind of spendy this week.
Yeah, and you put me in a tough place here because I was hoping to get Scotty. I'm going to pivot here. I'm going to make an interesting move. There's a couple guys at the top I like. There's a value play I am going to take who's not in good form. I'm going to take, with my first pick, a course history guy here. Someone who hasn't been playing well but has just played really well on this course. And at this price, I think it's like the similar thing with Byron said, it's going to free me up later on to really kind of go out and get who I want. That's Brian Harman. I'm going to take Brian Harman. My first pick. Did you really think someone else? Who did you think
you threw me for a total loop, dude. I was expecting somebody way different to that.
I think I know who you thought I was thinking. He probably will be gone, but I'm going to go with that. I wanted to take someone with a little value here. You know, Brian Harman. If you look at his course history on the course, he's been fantastic. He really loves this course. So the question is, do you think he can find that form here? I think he can. I mean, his last 4 tries, he's given you 4 top 10s, and if you even go before that, he's gotten even the years before that 3 additional top 10s. He's gotten plenty of top 5s. I mean, he just shows up here. I think this is another week where you get a vintage Brian Harman week, and we get the best out of him. I think he gets you another top 10. So at 7,200, I like Brian Harman. I am curious as to what the final ownership will look like on him. If he ends up getting over 15%, I will shy off. I'll go a different direction. I see about 13% right now, which I'm okay with. Still high, but I'm okay with that. If it gets any higher than that, it will be hard to stomach. Audience, you are on the clock. Nominations are coming in. Great job. We'll wait for those to get doubled. While we wait, I'll go to you, Byron. Are you interested in Brian Harman this week?
Yeah, I don't mind him. I think he's absolutely one of those guys that doesn't necessarily, if he doesn't have all of his game, he's going to struggle on these big, long, difficult courses. This course allows him to have a couple more outs. I think it kind of allows him to lean on more areas of his game that the course is demanding or not demanding areas of his game that he doesn't have. Like his lack of distance is not ideal at majors. He's very short, so and if the accuracy is just missing a little bit with him, we got problems. But this kind of a venue, I love what Brian Harman can get up to. He leads the field in strokes gained history, strokes gained wise, a little more inconsistent than a couple other course history dogs, but I like what he gets up to in a big way on this kind of venue.
Boom. All right, there you have it. Courtney, we appreciate you captaining team. Audience, leading your squad to a historic streak, and the 2 picks are locked in. Great job, team audience, locking in Xander and Victor Hovland. 2 solid picks, a good first-round turn. Spence, I'll go to you. What do you think of the audience first 2 picks?
I mean, I bet Victor Hovland this week to win this tournament. I think the question that I would ask as somebody who has that ticket is, can he make enough putts to actually capture this title? That would be my biggest concern with him. But look, I think at that price tag and in a world where I did not start with Scotty Scheffler, it's very likely that this Victor Hovland and then insert these names in this $9,000, $8,000 range would have probably been who I was very heavily going to throw into builds here. So it is rare for my model to like Victor Hovland as much as it did. He jumped into being a top 5 player for me this week. That's not normally the answer that I get. So I think Hovland's doing a lot of great things right now. And we saw it at the US Open to where, if honestly, he could have made some putts down the stretch there. He was very in that thing to win the tournament. You talked about it, Joel. Everybody felt like they were giving that tournament away. And a name like Hovland was one of those options that, unfortunately for him, you expect a name like that when they win their first major to finally be able to put the pieces together. He didn't quite get it done, but I think it's a nice course fit for him. I think he's a very solid play across the board this week.
I think that was a solid round by the audience. I like Hovland as well. I like Hovland a little bit more than Xander, but I'm never going to question taking Xander Schauffele. You know what the upside is with a pick like that. All right, with the second pick here, I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to take Sepp Straka off the board. Sepp Straka is another guy. I think it's just his game is going to suit this course really well. He'll be in the fairway often. We know he's a great ball striker. If he finds a hot putter this week, I think he can go out and win the tournament. At 9,200, the upside's there. I think it's about a lot of reasons to like Straka. There's similar reasons you like Justin Thomas, right? Just a lower price tag on a guy who has plenty of upside. So Sepp Straka for me. How about you, Byron? Is Sepp Straka on your radar for this week?
Yeah, I've bet him. to win the tournament. I bet a top 5 with that. I think he's also one of these dudes. He's not built for majors, man. He's not a great long iron player. He's very good between 100 and 200. That's where he like really thrives. So we can absolutely see him doing it this week. And when I say not great long iron, he's still 10th in this field, but the other two he's like first and third. That's how good he is from those ranges. So I think he's super accurate, good drive of the ball, and makes a lot of putts. The less he has to chip as well, which I think is another reason he struggles in majors a bit. The less you have to chip at an easy course like this, good for Seb.
Perfect. I love it. All right, pick endorsed. Happy about that. Spence, you got Scotty Scheffler. Now you got your second pick. Who are you looking at here?
You would think at some point, Joel, I would learn my lesson to stop doing this. Like I did it at the U.S. Open in multiple rounds where I bet him in matchups. None of them ended up winning, which is very unfortunate with it, because if you look at like this player that I'm about to give against the exact golfers I lost against, like for a full tournament matchup, they're like minus 180 in the space, and I was getting these minus 110 prices. But I'm once again, for what feels like the 1 millionth time on this show, I'm going to go back to Daniel Berger here. There are a handful of golfers for me that possess this upside quality. I understand we have not gotten that from Berger now for what feels like 4 or 5 tournaments, but I'm just going to trust the data in this spot in an event where you are going to get 4 days. And, I kind of talked about it at the very beginning with other golfers that the putter, like with Hovland, is going to be what matters. Berger's got to return back to some quality putting form. I thought we saw a little bit more of that last week at the U.S. Open. He ended up going ice cold with the around the green game, which is usually where he's good. So you kind of mix and match and you merge those two pieces together. To me, there's upside to be found here. Berger was another name along with Hovland that I put an outright ticket on. I got that at 80-1 very early on in the week. And if you look at the betting market, a lot of that's data golf that pushed it, but that number has been decimated in the space. That's more of like a 50-1 price now. And if I'm being honest, inside of my model, I have 39-1 as the proper price. So that's how high I am on Daniel Berger.
I like Berger a lot this week too. So I don't think I think he's also just underpriced at 7,500. I thought he would have been at least in the 8K range. So I feel like you're getting a really nice discounted golfer and a guy that should be a really good course fit. So that pick is definitely endorsed by me. Byron, would love to get your take as well on Daniel Berger, and then you got 2.
Yeah, it's a small field. I think this is one of the smallest signature event fields we get, right? With like 72 people. Usually there's 82 or something like that. I don't know, but the ownership's going to go somewhere, and I think you got to be okay taking on slightly more owned guys this week because there's just that many less options to choose from. So Berger at 12% shouldn't freak you out as much as it should in a normal week, and I think I love the upside with him there. He grades out 15 spots better for me in my model versus where DK's priced him. So I couldn't agree with you more, Joel. He's mispriced in my opinion. Also gained a lot of strokes putting at the US Open. So he gained like over a stroke every 3 of the 4 rounds, so it wasn't like fluky, but is it that kind of greens, or can he make all the birdie putts that we're going to have from further away? I don't know, but his upside's pretty good. I like him a lot.
All right. Daniel Berger pick officially endorsed. Byron, you got Justin Thomas, and now you got 2. So where are you going with your second and third picks?
Give me Patrick Cantley, $9,800, please. Don't usually do this. Since I've gone balanced, I'm gonna take a guy that's gonna very likely finish 5th to Justin Thomas. He's my second click. He's more expensive, but theoretically, I have put him in the lineup second. So he's a guy that I think is going to provide you a lot of safety. Now I can kind of shoot for a bit more upside options from here on out, and that's going to come in the form of Russell Henley at $8,800. And I don't even know what the hell that does to my salary. I'm just really excited that I could put all 3 of these guys in my it's doable. Got a couple 6K gems. We'll be fine with those. Look at that build. You can see those guys, they combine for almost 100% top 5 percentage, in their starts. So there's lots of upside there with some decent safety from old Paddy Ice.
I was 100% going to take Russell Henley with my next pick, so I will not be scrambling. I really like Henley here. And I think I'm liking what you said when you took Justin Thomas. That's coming to fruition. I like the way a kind of balanced lineup looks. So you have Thomas, Cantlay, Henley, all upper tier guys. You still have plenty of money to spend. You don't even have to go down to the 6K range. So I'm liking the start and the feel of your lineup here. Spen,
I'm totally willing to start lineups at $9,300 with Justin Thomas. Like, and then going from down there, I just threw Cantley in because just why not? But totally cool going from Justin Thomas as my first click.
I don't remember if it was you or Spencer that said it earlier, but after Scotty, who's the best player, after that, I don't feel like at the current form, anyone above in between Scotty and Thomas are that much better than Thomas. So it's like you don't need to spend up. I think all those guys are about the same, so you can spend the 93 and have just as much upside as anyone else. Obviously, Scotty's the best. I'll separate him, but all the other guys I feel like are pretty much at the same level. All right, Spence, back to you here. You got your third pick. Would love to get your take on Cantlay and Henley first, and then who you going with your third?
I like both picks from Byron for all the reasons that he talked about. Henley's a name that I have matchups on this week. I think he's a very safe target, and surprisingly, that Henley profile continues to get more robust in the upside that it's exhibiting inside of my model. So I think he's a very savvy pick there. Joel, I'm going to do something we've never done on this trade before or on this show before. Do you want to make a trade?
Oh, interesting.
So, my next two picks for your next two picks.
So I would pick now.
Yes, and then I would pick one before you coming back.
I'm going to decline. I'm going to decline your wager.
I know. Here's the problem with taking Scotty Scheffler. If I don't take a certain player right now, and I go the route that I think I'm going to go, I am very afraid that this lineup is just going to crumble on itself and I'm not going to be able to finish it the way that I want, which in theory means I should take that player first. I don't think I'm going to do that though, and I'm going to risk it, and it's probably not going to end well for that reason, but I talked about this when I gave Daniel Berger on Monday. There were essentially 5 or 6 guys inside of my model that had an upside that was much higher than public consensus seemed to be. And then 2 of those names, Data Golf hit really hard and moved them a lot lower on the board into this 50-1 range. The other name I'm going to take here, I might regret doing this and going this route. I'm going to take Aaron Rai. My model is in this spot with him to where this is not a name that I typically see upside in his profile. And I viewed him as a top 15 golfer when it came to win equity. You look at what he's done at this course, 24th in 2023, 40th in 2022. I thought that 33rd place finish that he had at the U.S. Open was perfectly fine after missing back-to-back cuts. There is a lot to like in that profile with him, and he's the number 1 driving accuracy player. He's the number 3 golfer for me off the tee at die courses. He's the number 10 golfer off the tee at short par 70s. You throw all of that together, he's number 6 for me in expected driving. And if that is the return that we actually end up getting from him, like that is higher than my baseline at other courses, I think it's a really nice setup for him. I'm just a little bit worried about what that does for the future of these picks now.
I don't know if this is going to make you sad or not, but I was not going to take Aaron Rai. Audience might have, so you still might have gotten back to you, but it wasn't going to come from me. So sorry, Bill. Let's see. Maybe the guy you want will still get back to you too. So that could not.
I do not have high expectations for this, Joel.
All right. All right. I know who I want. I'm trying to think who I need to strategically take myself, so that because I have my list up. So
Joel, also, trade was on the table, and you declined a page in the history books of King of the Draft.
I was a smart. It wasn't a good trade for me. There wasn't one guy I wanted at that spot. I would have the 2 picks before. So I'll do a trade when the trade benefits me, but here wasn't the spot. We got to wait for when it really counts. This wasn't it. And so right now that I'm on the board, I'm happy to be on the board here. I'm going to take one of the hottest golfers on tour, a guy who has just been playing red hot golf. I'm actually a little bit surprised he's lasted this long. I think he's underpriced. To the point we were making earlier, we talked about all these big name guys, the guys who are the best players on tour. Ben Griffin's been playing better than all of them over the last 2 months.
What you're going to say, Cam Young?
I'm going to go with Ben Griffin here. But Ben Griffin, like, would you have been surprised if Ben Griffin was in the 9K range? Probably not, as well he's playing. So to get him at only 8,100, I think he's underpriced. I think there's still plenty of upside with what he's doing. I think I'm just getting a more talented golfer than the price tag here. So I like Ben Griffin a lot. I'm going to stick going to him until he shows us a reason not to. He's doing it at tough courses. He's doing it at easy courses. I mean, there's just no reason.
Short courses, long courses.
Yeah, you name it. He's just playing excellent golf. So I really love Ben Griffin. Audience, you are back on the clock. You have 2 here. So I see some nominations coming in. I think one might be finalized. Great job, team. Let's get that second one locked in. While we wait, let's go back to you, Spencer. Are you interested in Ben Griffin at all this week?
My model always seems to like Ben Griffin in a lot of these tournaments, and I mean, rightfully so. You have, 4 top 10 finishes in a row. The one thing I will say about Ben Griffin this week is this was the first time for me from a statistical output that my model didn't overly love him compared to where he's been. A lot of that comes down to the proximity numbers. He's 54th for me out of 72 players. You can make an argument for Ben Griffin at some of these shorter courses off the tee. But I mean, even still, I essentially weighed like 8 different factors of off the tee numbers. He ended up being the 59th projected driver for me. So the safety numbers like him a lot. I think he's a fine play that's going to finish somewhere in the middle. Like when I talk about matchups and Henley, I bet Henley very early on in the week against Ben Griffin. I don't think Ben Griffin's going to burn a lineup. I just don't know if the upside is as high as it's been recently. So for me, it's probably going to be a sell-off spot for what the ownership is, even if he probably lands somewhere in the middle of the pack in my projections.
Ooh, all right. Audience, the 2 picks are locked in. Great job, team audience. Harry Hall and Keegan Bradley off the board. I really liked Keegan this week. Keegan was a guy I was contemplating taking there with my next pick. Obviously, he's not going to get back to me now. But I think both are solid picks. Harry Hall, I thought, was underpriced at 7,100. He's a guy that's got some upside this week. So I like the audience's turn there. Byron, how about you? Are you interested in Hall or Keegan Bradley?
I may or may not have bet both of them in the first round. They're usually going to get off to a hot start. Maybe they can hold on. Maybe they can't. Harry Hall on easy golf courses, really good, typically. Keegan Bradley at this golf course, typically insane upside. And you're getting them for 85 and 7,100 bucks. Totally cool with that. Just don't know what Keegan's going to get up to this week. I feel like in the outright market he's a little overpriced, but I like him in DK at 85.
All right, there you have it. All right, I'm going to fall back here. I can change my pick from that spot, and the guy I'm changing my pick to in a similar range instead of Keegan, I'm going to go to Shane Lowry. I'm not going to hold what happened last week against him. That course was a complete bloodbath. I think you can just, for some guys who struggled last week, as difficult as that course was playing, we can wipe that away. I think if you don't look at last week alone, Shane Lowry's playing unbelievable golf this year. People loved him last week. I don't think that should change for this week. This should actually, on paper, to me, be a better course fit for him. And we've known he's got incredible upside. I mean, he's got, I don't know how many top 10s this year, but a lot. He's been getting up that leaderboard. I think this is another week where we see Lowry creep up into a, 8th or 7th, something like that, into the top 10, where he's finding a lot of fairways, striking those irons well, like we've seen him do. So at 8,300, I think Shane Lowry is a good value here. Spence, how about you? Are you interested in Shane Lowry this week?
I think Lowry's fun. I'm more disappointed with the audience taking Keegan Bradley. I like the Harry Hall pick also. I'll throw that out there. But Bradley was somebody that I was going to pick at some point. That was not the direct name that I was hoping was going to fall when I made this trade. But over the next 3 or so picks, Bradley was going to be one of the options that was going to go off the board for me. And I mean, if we're being honest here, Harry Hall was probably a 50-50 proposition on if he was going to be my last pick. So the audience said that they were going to snipe me. They didn't necessarily snipe the exact player I'm about to take right now, but they still managed to take the other 2 players off my board that I was going to select. So, like I said, it's making it more complicated. But the player that I was going to take, Joel, is I'm going to take Andrew Novak here. You take Novak all the time. I thought I had given him up by going the Aaron Rai route, and I feel very fortunate that he was able to fall back to me in the spot. So when we look at price tag difference of what a player should be priced and what they're actually priced, there is not a golfer in this tournament that's more underpriced, according to my model, than Andrew Novak is. We could put him in the $8,000 range, and I kind of think that's more suitable for the kind of skill set that he has. So top 25 win equity player for me, top 25 in safety. You add those two pieces together, he's a top 25 overall player, obviously. So I think this is a really nice course fit for Novak. And I know the ownership is around 8 to 9%, and you haven't necessarily gotten a ton of course history from him in the past, but different golfer than what we've seen in the past. And the data really likes him for this tournament.
I'm mad at myself. It's just bad drafting. I should have known better. I obviously wanted him. For whatever reason, I thought he would get back to me, which was stupid. I should have taken Novak there and waited on Lowry. So drop the ball, but great pick. I agree with everything you said. Novak's awesome. And I think, I said it last week. I didn't think last week was a good week for him. I think he struggles on these tougher courses, which this week is not that. It's a super easy course. He's gonna strike his irons really well. He's gonna be in the fairway. Like, these are the weeks that we see Novak thrive. And at 6,700 at Spencer's point, he's super underpriced. At least should have been in the 7K range. So I love that pick there. Byron, would love to get your take on Novak, and then you got two.
Yeah, I think, Novak, if you're looking at course comps, RBC Heritage, Harbortown is a great course comp, I think, this kind of week. Sedgefield, TPC Deera, and PGA National, Colonial, those are kind of courses I'm leaning into. By the way, Ben Griffin has no worse than a 7th in those courses. I don't know if I have RBC Heritage in there, but Charles Schwab winner, Cognizant T4, Wyndham T7, and the John Deere T5. So I'm all in on Ben Griffin, Joel. I'm very sad he never made it back to me. I think, he's probably my favorite player compared to, anyone in that 8K range right now.
Boom. I love to hear that, but that puts you in a tough place because now you've got to be able to pick, you can probably still get into the 8K range if you want to, but you got to round out your squad. So where are you going to pivot? I
got a couple guys that I don't mind down in the 6Ks. I'm going to go with Max Griesemann at $6,900 as one of my high upside shooters. He is just waiting to get to an easy golf course on the PGA Tour. And this week we get it. He hasn't been playing the greatest, hanging in there, playing okay, at the Memorial, in the Opens and the majors. This is his week. He's going to just unleash that putter. I'm looking. He's got a putter that can absolutely do a lot of damage. Sedgefield Country Club, right? We think of a similar kind of comp course. He threw it away to Aaron Rai last year. So I am a big believer in Max Griesemann this week. Then I'm going to go with Luke Clanton at $7,400. I think he is someone that's also just been waiting for easy golf scoring. He makes a lot of birdies on these easy courses. $7,400. This dude's got the most top tens or second most top tens as an amateur all time. Now he's $7,400. He's done with college. Had his first clunker of an event, coming back as a pro on a hard course in a different country. I'm sure he's played this golf course a couple times. Let's see what he can do. This is his first event as a pro, right? RBC Canadian was his first event, and he was paired with Ludwig and Rory. Obviously, he's going to miss the cut there, so. Yeah, I think that's a good call. We've seen the upside with Clan, right? Even as an amateur, we've seen his name at the top of these leaderboards. This is an easier course. It just feels like one of those weeks where we see him rise up. So I like that turn there. Spence, what about you? Are you on Clanton or Griesemann this week?
I texted Byron, I don't even know what day that was. I think it was Sunday. Griesemann was one of the best values that I had in my model at the US Open, and kind of faltered down the stretch there after the rain delay, but he played really good golf. Like, he continued to skyrocket up my sheet over the handful of days there. So I think it makes logical sense to continue to ride him into a tournament like this.
Oh, all right. All right, Spence, you're here with your fifth. You got some value picks off the board. You still have about $7,500 per pick to spend. Where are you going here?
So can you filibuster this for like a second, Joel? I did not realize my calculation on this Tuesday is not correct. And when I took Novak, I didn't realize that. I mean, I'll say the golfer once the golfer's taken. I assume I've just handed him to you, Joel, but I I can't afford him and actually figure out a lineup here. So let me figure out which route I want to go here.
Ooh.
Well, if you can't afford him, let's put the name out there first.
I don't want to just give him to you.
Give him to you. Joel, you sly savage.
My pick is I'm going to take Morikawa. So if it's not Morikawa, it doesn't matter.
Let me look really fast to see. I mean, I don't think anybody can afford it. Tommy Fleetwood this week is probably one of the best plays on the board. I unfortunately, if I take Tommy in the 6,100 range, there's really nothing I can do that I want to. So I don't know. Give me 1 second to figure out what route to go here.
Spencer.
Byron, I may have just changed my mind. I might be taking Tommy with my next pick. No, I'm kidding. I don't think I'm going to do that.
Spencer.
Yeah.
It's your turn to pick.
Well, give me a second. Just talk for 1 second amongst yourselves. And
give me a minute. Well, let's go to you, Byron. Are you interested in Tommy Fleetwood this week?
I am interested in him as a first-round leader. I think I don't want anything to do with him from a outright perspective. Maybe a top 20 at plus money, but I think he's going to get off to a fast start. He's perfectly built for this golf course, but he's going to somehow mess up one of the rounds, completely put himself out of it. Maybe, and hoping it's not round one, because I'm in top five places there for him too.
Do you think it's possible that Tommy Fleetwood never wins a PGA Tour tournament event?
Yes. It's very possible.
It's
very possible. Him and Cam Young are probably going to be watching from their couch for the rest of their lives.
I don't think that's fair to Tommy Fleetwood, because Tommy Fleetwood's body of work in history is just way bigger than Cam Young's. Like, Cam Young has been pretty good for a couple of years. Tommy Fleetwood, I feel like, has been pretty good for like a decade or more.
Exactly. Joel, he's got less runway left. He's going to win a tournament. The runway's running out, buddy.
Yeah.
I know. You know? He's not the longest guy in the world. He's just a normal distance dude that is going to get lapped until there's like specific courses that really suit him. Although he's elite ball striker, you know.
I feel like he's got to win one, especially like now where like half the guys are at live and there's like these shorter events that aren't as competitive. He's got to win one of these. This week could be a good week that he could win it. I mean, this isn't as weak of a field. It's a pretty loaded field, but like it's one of these type of tournaments where it's like only Scotty and like none of the other big names show up. He's got to go out there and win one of those weeks.
You trust Tommy versus Scotty like Golf Jesus versus the God of Golf? Like,
fair, no. Not at all.
I'll take this into my selection here with Fleetwood, and because like this is how drafts can just change on a dime from what is expected to happen. I thought Byron or the audience or whoever it ended up being would take Scotty at the 101, and I probably would have taken Tommy Fleetwood at the 102 in that position. And now I'm in this spot to where I can't afford Fleetwood with the way that I built this lineup. And when he wins this golf tournament, I will pull this clip and we'll post it out into existence that this is the event that Tommy Fleetwood's going to capture his first PGA Tour title. That's well, let me ask you this, Byron, as you shake your head there. What is a worse outright bet? I'll give you three names. At the prices that they are. Tommy Fleetwood, Cameron Young, Jordan Spieth.
Oh
like rank them from 1, 2, 3.
Cameron Young, number 1.
Agreed.
Tommy Fleetwood, probably number 2, and then Jordan, number 3. As in worst.
I'll take Spieth 2 there. I think Fleetwood is the best, obviously, if I'm giving this argument. But yeah, I mean, this Cameron Young ownership is wild at this point.
It's absurd.
The guy can't hit an iron, and we continue to do this every single week with him.
I know.
It is what it is. For my selection, I've taken enough time at this point. Don't love the route that I took here. If I could do this differently, I may have taken Davis Thompson and Tommy Fleetwood here. With that not being an option, I will take Ryan Fox.
Ooh, Foxy off the board. I mean, he's been great. And if you just look at his form, he's been just playing so good. It's one of those guys where you just got to ride him while he's playing this well. So I was thinking about maybe stealing Fox with my pick there. I don't think he was the guy I was going to land on, but he was definitely someone I was considering. We'll go to you on this one, Byron. Is Fox in your player pool?
Yeah, he's playing good golf, man. He's ball striking the absolute crap out of it right now. So solid finish at the US Open. Obviously, he's now got 2 wins in the season, man. That's there's a couple guys going on like several win streaks this year. Scotty, Rory, Sepp, Fox. Like who's to say that neither of those guys go and win their third? Winning's contagious, and it's also very difficult for a lot of people. And when it's this easy for you to win two in a year, maybe a third one comes. So I think multiple winners stand a chance this week for sure.
Ooh. All right, let's see. Could happen. I'm going to be strategic here with my next pick. I am going to take Colin Morikawa, but the audience can't afford him, so there's no reason for me to take him now. Let me get my salary saver in first before I finish with Morikawa. That's a guy I've been taking a lot this year. I haven't hit him on all his upside weeks, but he certainly has upside. That's Bud Cauley. And I know the audience just mentioned him in the chat as well. It's 6,800. We've seen how many top 10s. I think he's gotten 4 in his last 8 outings. We know the upside's there. He's going to be in the fairway. He can make putts. He's got the all-around game to really get you another top 10 at 6,800. That's the type of upside I'm looking for at a 6K golfer. I thought he should have probably been in the 7K range here for Cauley. So it's hit or miss, but not even necessarily hit or miss because he's going to get 4 days, so there's no missed cut. So it's just a matter of, as long as he doesn't have any really bad days, I think Cauley's going to compete this week. So I like Cauley a lot. The price is certainly right on that one. Audience, it looks like you have one pick locked in. Oh, no, both are locked in. Great job, team audience. It looks like it's going to be McNeely and Nick Taylor, which, again, 2 solid picks. The audience team is looking pretty solid. Byron, a few picks off the board here. Would love to get your take on all of them, on McNeely, on Nick Taylor, and on Bud Cauley.
Man, I like all 3 of those dudes. I think they're returning, Bud in particular, returning to a venue that kind of suits him better, more positional, shorter kind of a golf course. We've seen him play well at the Players, Cognizant, those kind of courses, or the shorter venues. This is the one for him. Maverick McNeely was the guy that I'm going to be playing instead of Cameron Young, like at better ownership, at similar upside potential, can win a golf tournament. I'm not like he goes up against Cam Young. I think he's kicking his ass. I just don't see, Cam getting it done. And at that ownership, it's like it's a Cam cult, it's crazy. So Nick Taylor also arriving at a venue now where his accuracy off the tee isn't going to penalize him for having lack of distance at these long golf courses. We saw him thrive at Muirfield, another course that if you're hitting from the fairway, you're in good shape. Irons are great wedge player, and he puts well on these easy course venues. So I can send all 3 of those off into a blaze of glory. Great.
Well, let me confirm with you guys. What ownership are you seeing on Cam Young?
15% already. And I think the more people hype him up, I think in the higher stakes stuff, people will play this dude at like 25%. Tell you that now.
Way too high.
Yeah, it's too good a value right now.
And the other thing with that, I know this isn't like a strategy, but I like Cam Young. He is playing well, but is he really going to get 3 top 5s in a row? At some point, he's going to come back. I think there'll still be more good results for him this year, but 3 top 5s in a row, I don't know. I have a hard time seeing that.
And it's all putter. That's the thing. It's like all the putter that's doing all the heavy lifting that can disappear any week. It's a lot harder for irons and ball striking to disappear. His irons are bad.
Exactly. The putter, you don't keep a red hot putter for that long. It's just
all the time.
Exactly. My prediction on this, whether this ends up being right or wrong, I'm going to say that in the $5 50,000 person contest, Cam Young is going to go 18% off. I think in the big money contest, whether this ends up being right, take the 888 or the 555, I think Cam Young's going to be sub 10%. I think we're going to see sharp money move against him this week. We've seen it in the betting market already. I think some of the sharp DFS players are going to pivot against him also. I'll tweet it out and we'll do a recap on this to see if it's right. But I would not be shocked if Cam Young didn't end up being the squarest play, quote unquote, on the board.
Interesting. All right. Well, we will soon find out. That is for sure. Well, I'm a man of my word. I told you I was taking Colin Morikawa here. I am going to do so. Colin Morikawa off the board. Obviously we haven't seen the best version of Colin Morikawa recently, but I think this is the type of track we want to get back to. He's actually literally the opposite of Cam Young from the perspective of he gained almost 12 strokes on his irons last week, and he lost 9 strokes putting. Losing 9 strokes putting is Like, I mean, we know Colin Morikawa is not a great putter. We know he can do that, but like that is really just really bad. I can't imagine he's going to do that again. If he can go back to neutral, even just lose one stroke putting, if he's anywhere near what he's doing with his irons, he's going to have a really good result this week. So I think Colin Morikawa gets back into it. I think we get a top 10 for Morikawa this weekend. Of course, that should suit him. Byron, I saw you made a face. So I want to get your take on that. What are your thoughts on Morikawa this week?
I'm out on Colin Morikawa and Xander Schauffele until they show me like what's up. You know, like it's both Colin, since he came at the media and came and like gave one of the most unenthusiastic a speech that lacked so much self-confidence when trying to defend yourself and you've had time to script it. It was so soft. And since that interview, he hasn't finished better than 10th. On a lot of courses that make a lot of sense for this dude. And he just can't get it done. Ever since he lost to Russell Henley. Russell Henley killed Colin Morikawa. Like, he's upside at least. Now, Colin's running around without a head. He's got no upside.
Well, I mean, you're not wrong. It is fair. It looks like Colin has been struggling. At least it seems like he's not himself. I do think that's going to turn around. I don't know if it's this week. I'm hoping it's this week. I drafted him, but we shall see. Spence, would love to get your take. Are you interested in Morikawa this week? And then you got your last here with, what do you have? 8K to go.
I'm indifferent on Morikawa. I think the answer I would give just stems back to the original answer. I'm just either trying to move up for Scotty or move down for the Fleetwoods and the Thomases and the Cantlays and all those names. Like, to me, that just makes a little bit more logical sense of how I'm trying to make my builds this week. Jody said Hideki's going to be round one leader. Now, whether he is or he isn't, I don't know what I have done this show. Like, I'm very good at math. Like, that is one of my strengths in life. I have seemed to have forgotten how to do math on this show. I left enough money to take Hideki Matsuyama with my final pick. Went and looked, realized I can't afford a Hideki at this point right now. So I don't know what I have done with this lineup. This has gone south on me in all the wrong ways here. If you look at Hideki's irons, just to talk about him very quickly, spiked at the US Open, always seems to spike at the US Open. It might be a US Open thing with him, but I am willing to trust some of those numbers. I do think he's an underappreciated commodity in this tournament where he is sub 10% and possesses an upside to actually compete in these large field GPP tournaments. So I think you can do worse dart throws there. Unfortunately, now looking at this build though, like, I don't love a lot of these names in the $7,000 section. That
we are now fighting for the same name. This is a problem.
I'm probably going to go lower and going to leave. I don't know who you're going to take. I'm probably going to go lower though and leave myself money on the table.
I was going to take Maverick McNeely, by the way. Shout out audience for totally boning me there.
I don't know if I love this necessarily. I'm going to take Akshay Bhatia. He is a name that is in my player pool right now. Love the proximity numbers. Love the course history that he brings here, even though that's just one tournament. I mean, if it wasn't Bhatia, I honestly was going to drop down and potentially take like Sam Stevens or Davis Thompson. And if Grazerman may have been available, I might have taken him. Like, that's kind of what my route was because I miscalculated.
Well, just one other name I want to throw out there. You could have afforded, and if you were looking to pivot off of the ownership of Cam Young, I like Taylor Pendrith there a lot in that spot. I think Taylor Pendrith is the guy who's going to come with a fraction of the ownership of Young, who I think possesses similar upside. I mean, he's striking the ball really well. He's got to make some putts, but Pendrith is the guy I would pivot to in that range myself. Byron, go ahead.
Really quickly, I will say, I mean, look, there's not a large discrepancy. I know we're shitting on Cameron Young right now. It's more so of an ownership discussion for me than anything else. If you put Taylor Pendrith and Cameron Young side by side to each other and just said who should be favored in a head-to-head matchup, it's not a large discrepancy, but I prefer Taylor Pendrith. Like, I think when you actually compare them to one another, he is just a better play. And now you add the ownership and it's, a third of what you're getting on Cameron Young. I agree with you. I think he's a nice little pivot in that spot.
Boom. All right. Well, Byron, we heard the chuckle when the Bhatia pick was taken. Did you want Bhatia?
Yeah.
You did. Yeah. All right. Well, now that's off the board. And you also can't take Pendrith because you don't have enough money. Where are you pivoting?
I might just go with Siwoo Kim at $7,800. He's been floating around the top of the leaderboard, but just seems like he has one round where he kind of just lets go a little bit. He played so nicely at the US Open to start the tournament, and then I think that course just eats you up. So I think he'll be really excited to play a course that's a lot easier than the US Open. And he's weird like that. I think he can really enjoy his playing easy golf, because I don't think a US Open is what Siwoo Kim is made for. So give me him. I think he's probably one of the safer options on my squad, to be honest.
I think Siwoo Kim makes a lot of sense this week. I think that was a good pick to get the last round there, especially. That's a wrap for the draft tonight. And audience, you got a good-looking squad. I think a 4 in a row is in play. Should be a fun tournament this week. It's an elevated event coming off a major. I'm excited for the Travelers. Do us a favor. Smash the like button. Give us a follow. It goes a long way. We truly appreciate the audience, you guys participating every week. That's what makes this show so great. So thank you. Before we wrap up this week, we have one last segment. We're going to do who were you surprised did not get taken and your favorite bet of the week. For someone I'm surprised I didn't get taken, I got 2 names I'm going to throw out there. I'm going to start with Sam Burns. He's just been playing great. Obviously, he imploded in the rain on Sunday, but other than that, he looked fantastic. I'm also going to put out Bobby McIntyre, who was also right there in contention last week. Looked really good. He's also looked really good for the last month or so. So I thought both guys are certainly in play this week. What about you, Byron? Anyone you're surprised did not get taken?
Cam Young never got taken, which is interesting, given how much chalk he's going to be.
Yeah.
I think also Ludwig is interesting too. If he gets like lower than 9% right now, or even 9%, I might just be in. He's been playing well, and he can putt lights out at times, but he's had some really bad rounds too. So I think he's absolutely worth like a contrarian play at the top. He goes off in the morning. Remember, we got slight AM PM situation going on where you want to take those AM guys for Thursday.
Oh, I love it. There you have it. Spence, what about you? Who are you surprised did not get drafted this week?
I mean, I think the audience is throwing out not that I'm surprised that they weren't drafted, but I mean, if you look at Courtney, I like Kevin Yu. Kevin Yu's a name that's going to make my player pool. That's another option that alongside Davis Thompson I was considering. Jody talked about Sam Stevens. That's a name that I'm probably going to have inside my player pool this week. But of a player that I'm surprised was not taken, I mean, not that I'm taking either one of these 2 names, but I do think it's surprising that Cameron Young and I don't believe Jordan Spieth was taken. Those are 2 popular names that I keep seeing people go to. And, I mean, I'll segue this into my best bet. I don't think the number is still available, unfortunately, but like the very first bet that I placed this week was Keegan Bradley minus 115 over Jordan Spieth. That's kind of the routes that I was trying to go, is find these fade candidates, the Spieths, the Cameron Youngs, and kind of try to find opponents against them. And we have seen, whether this ends up being good for me or not, we have seen the market shift in the direction where it agrees with that take. And I don't think that that's a good answer for DFS gamers when you start seeing sharp money go against these really popular names. And like I said, with Spieth and even Cameron Young, like my model has concerns with them.
Well, let me ask you this. Is that your bet of the week?
The problem is with it, like, I don't know how it can be my bet of the week when like the value, I got it at 115. You could probably get a 135 if you shopped around at this point. Like I gave 3 matchups out in the space. They are all 30 plus points moved from where I gave them. It's one of those things where it's just the market running away. But I mean, statistically, that was the biggest advantage I had on a matchup at the time of when it was given. From an outright wager, I know this is even the Ryan Berger numbers are gone. I know it's a wild statement. I still think Tommy Fleetwood at like that 35-40 to 1 range has a little bit of value. And I'm not a Tommy Fleetwood guy. I bet him last week. I'm going down the well one more time, but I think Fleetwood is a better golfer, and I think this is a nice course compared to a Cameron Young.
Wow, going back to Fleetwood. Interesting. How about you, Byron? What is your bet of the week this week?
Bet of the week is going to be Patrick Cantley to finish top 20 at minus 150, minus 140. He's done it 6 times in a row at this golf course. The course history is so strong, and he's done it 3 of the last 5 times he's played. And he does it 54% of the time when he tees it up. So all of that going into the mix it's real good. I love that bet. It's also the sports books are hiding that negative odds minus 140 in the placement market just outside of plus money. So people don't want to go there because apparently people don't like betting plus like slightly negative bets in the betting market. So I'm forcing people to play that.
Before we continue on that, Byron, would you elaborate on that for just a second here? Because I think it's a really good point. Like I gave this argument last week on a show. Look, I mean, this is a much worse example, but if everybody out there, like I watched the French Open when the French Open took place, and Sinner and Alcaraz were incredible in that. And I've said before, I'm somebody that if you threw me out on the tennis court with a random person, like I could probably beat 99.9% of people. If you put me out against Alcaraz, like you could make the odds minus 100 million just because like it's value. Like I'm never going to beat him. If you start changing the game plan of now, if I win a point, if all of a sudden do I win that bet? Like we move the goalposts, things change there. But just elaborate for a second of why a minus number can still be value, because I think that's something that people do miss out on in the long scheme of things.
Yeah, I think once you convert minus 140 into a percentage, I should actually know what it is since I'm harping on about it, but it's not more than like, what is it, 54, 55%? Like,
at 140, it's 58%.
58%. So if you think, okay, the last 3 tournaments he's played, 5 of the tournaments, he's finished top 23 times. That's like 60%. He's done it 6 times in a row. Yeah, that's 100%. Like he's 54% over the last 12 months. So if you add all of those together, I think it's well into the 60s. Like that the likelihood he has another top 20 here is right there. And we're only dealing with the 58, maybe it's 70%, if you really take that course history into account. It's the best bet you could have made at the Travelers, so I think taking on a 50% probability number when you think it's probably going to happen more often than that anyway is value. I think we're just getting stuck at like 50-50 at minus 100. That's, I think, the situation in golf betting right now.
I think it's a really good point, and I'm going to jump on that bandwagon. I'm going to give my bet that's going to be a minus 140. I'm going to go with Ben Griffin, top 30. And I think, I think there's a lot of value. I mean, listen, he hasn't been anywhere near not being top 30 in the last month or so, right? It's nowhere near it. So I'll give a little juice to the fact that, like, I actually think I'll get top 20. If you want to bet that, do that too. But I feel like it's just safe. Even if he has a bad day, I feel like Ben Griffin's getting you in the top 30. And I'll lay the juice because I think that's just a winner. And to the percentages you're saying, I'm willing to lay that because I'd rather just get the win.
Yeah, baby. Let's go.
All right. Well, that is a wrap for tonight. Hey, Byron, we super appreciate you coming on. We're super grateful for you. For most of you who are watching the show, you know who Byron is. You follow him. You're getting his content. But if you don't, make sure you follow the Model Maniac. He provides unbelievable content. You will win more money by just following along with what Byron has to say. Byron, thank you again. Where else can we find you this week?
At the Model Maniac. Patreon is where all my stuff is. I'm going to hype up Spencer's Rotoballer stuff as well. The man works his absolute tail off. Just want to go get them both. I think that's totally cool. It's and if you are going to do it, just go get Spencer's. I'm going to hype him up because I believe in this man so much. He's one of the best in the business. And I'm not just saying that like from a betting perspective, from a modeling perspective, you're not going to find much better. And, even during the ups and downs, I always trust Spence to get it figured out, man. So it's time to jump on the Spencer bandwagon. I think it's going to start taking off. So, that's where you can find me this week.
I appreciate that, Byron. And like I always used to say, like I think everybody knows this at this point, but like Byron and I over at Rotoballer, we built something really special. And I will throw it back to Byron. Check out his Patreon. Be sure to do that. Like, I used to say, because our packages were separated over at Rotoballer, I used to tell people, buy both of our stuff. You get tons of data, tons of information, but we do it, even though it's in a similar way, we come up with a lot of different answers. We might come up with the same answer and give it to you in a completely different way from what the other person did. So look, data is the key to the future of being successful in gambling. I will always say that. Whether you're on a hot run or a cold run, The data is what leads you. That is how you find your value. Byron talked about it when you're looking like whether a play is minus 200, minus 1,000, plus a million. It comes down to, is it value for what that price is? That's really the only thing that matters at the end of the day. So there's a lot of great work out there. I will double down on like throwing it back at Byron, though, puts out great work. And I really appreciate you coming on. Like, I know we said at the beginning that there's nobody that we would rather have on this show. Like, you have a permanent place in that seat whenever you want it, dude.
I will make a statement here, comparing us to the Live Tour, right? The Live Tour is trying to make team golf a thing. I think we do a better job at team podcasting here. As a group, we did a great job. With Byron, we super appreciate you coming on. Spence, anything else I forgot for this evening?
No, thank you for everybody who tuned in. It means a lot. I'll throw this out there just for anybody who doesn't know. I think that everybody who probably tunes into us is watching Byron before, but be sure to watch his back nine bets at 4 o'clock Pacific time, 7 o'clock Eastern. It leads right into this show for the most part. Byron puts out an hour and a half show pretty much every time, and there's that 30-minute buffer before we get into ours. But if you're not doing so already, watch those two shows. And then Pat is putting out a bunch of content on the network also. So there's a lot going on Mayo Media Network these days.
Get in Mayo Media Network. You will find plenty of content to find.
So much good stuff.
And you will win some money. Good luck this week. We appreciate you all coming in every week. Follow along. See if the audience can get a fourth win in a row. We'll come back next week, crown a new king, and do it all over again. Good luck, and see you next week.